Hello, I'm live. It's been a while since I've done a live, but here I am. I wanted to talk about, if I get some questions, I'll answer them in a minute or two, but I wanted to talk about this really common struggle that people have when they're trying to eat unrestrictedly and they're really stuck on this night routine, right? This like night, if you want to call it a binge, this sequence of foods that they feel that they need to eat that are typically a lot more challenging than the foods that you're eating earlier in the day. And this need to kind of like pad or prep your entire day around making sure that your evening binge feels good and right, like you've earned it, like you've crossed off all the eating disorder boxes, and now you can just sit down, all the work is done for the day, and you don't have any more tasks at hand, and no one's going to bug you, and the environment is perfect, and the food is exactly what you want, and you just get really stuck on that, so stuck that it keeps you from feeling free during the day, because you again have this binge every night to that has to go in a certain way, that has to feel a certain way, kind of like what I was talking about yesterday, where you're like chasing that high. It has to feel like just so euphoric because you've just had this perfect day of restriction essentially, and now you get to eat. And so the way to overcome that, well, there's a couple of things. I've talked about the candy bar challenge, and if you're yet to try that, and probably if you haven't tried it yet and you've been watching my videos for a while, probably every time I suggest it, you're just like, like you just cringe, like, don't bring it up again, no. But if you know that that would help you, maybe you don't even know if it would help you, but if you're curious and you're kind of like, why does she harp on about that all the time? What is it about this freaking candy bar? Please just treat it like an experiment, get curious, and just try it. So that would be the first step, is start your day immediately from the moment you wake up, you open your eyes with something really challenging, like a candy bar, a full-size candy bar, or something scarier for you. And then you immediately get to your breakfast, right? However, this is something that I had to do in my own recovery, and it was terrifying, and it actually brought up a lot of anger and resentment. And I don't even really know towards who, because it was so infuriating that I knew I had to do it, but I really, really didn't want to. But I knew I had tried everything else to kind of overcome or get over this fixation that I had on not eating foods that were challenging for me, because I had to save them for night. I had to. It just felt like it was I felt like I had to, essentially. I had no choice in it. So what I had to do is I had to get smarter than my eating disorder, right? That's essentially what we always have to do in recovery, is just get smarter than our eating disorder. And so what I did was I wrote down all the foods that I ate at night. And I've had clients do this too, and it's very helpful. It's a really, really helpful tool. Write all the things that you eat at night, assuming that these aren't safe foods, right? Like the foods that I was binging on at night were scary, like challenging, but at night they didn't feel challenging. Somehow, like the clock would strike 9 p.m. and as if I took like a natural Valium or something, like all of my anxiety would come down and all these fears. Whereas if you asked me to eat these foods I ate at night earlier in the day, it's like I would have had an absolute panic attack type of thing. And so I forced myself, as I wrote these things down, I forced myself to say, okay, you're going to eat all of these foods that you've been eating at night during the day. And then immediately when I said that, I was like, but then I can't eat them at night. What if I don't eat them at night? And so I was like, oh, well, if you feel like them, then you can eat them at night. So I tried that for a day or two. And of course, night would come and I'm like, no, I can't. Of course I felt like them, but I was like, no, now I can't eat them. See, now this is why I don't do this. This is why I don't eat earlier in the day, because now I can't eat it at night. And I was so ticked off at myself. So then again, I had to get smarter than my eating disorder. And I said, okay, so now the new rule is you eat all this during the day, and you have to, regardless if you feel like it or not, even though I knew I'd feel like it, regardless if you feel like it or not, you have to eat these foods again tonight. And so that night would come and I was like, why? I'm not getting that high because I ate all these things earlier in the day. I'm so mad at myself. I'm never doing this again. Ugh, see, this is why I don't eat these foods at night, and all the crap going on in my head of just like how frustrated I was. And I said, no, just keep doing it. Keep doing it. You're not getting that euphoric feeling at night, but so what? Just keep eating it. And I just forced myself to eat those things again at night. And I did that for a few days, right? I did that for a long time. But after a few days, what happened was I started settling into the idea that I can eat yummy treat-like foods at night or during the day, and I can eat them at night. And so once that shift happened and I kind of like warmed up to this idea, I kind of started to enjoy it. And then after a while, I started deviating from those foods that I felt like I had to eat every day that I really, really liked at night. I started deviating from. So during the day, it was like, I don't know, maybe instead of that ice cream, I felt like I wanted every single day. It was now like, I want a big cinnamon roll, or I want whatever other things. I was actually the OCD didn't have me so locked into those foods as being like the foods I could eat and had to eat. So if that's you listening to this, please try that out. Like I said, it brought up a lot, similar to like when I stopped that movement compulsion. It brought up a lot of just anger. I was just frustrated, and I felt like I was force feeding myself during the day because I wasn't craving these foods, and I just hated it so bad. Um, but it broke so many rules, right? One, the fear of eating, certain foods earlier in the day, eating foods twice in a day, right? I got to a point where like even the idea of like eating an apple twice in a day would freak me out. So of course, like these more challenging foods, forcing myself to eat them twice in a day was terrifying. Starting my day not orthorexic, where I started my day with a candy bar. What else? Not saving, right? Just not saving up or feeling like I have to wait until I can enjoy things. Eating under not perfect circumstances, knowing that I still have things I had to get done that day, with responsibilities, but then also is allowing myself to eat. So there's just so many things that doing that helped me to be able to rewire. Felt really like I made a lot of progress at that point. So, okay, so okay, let's see here. Got some things. So that's just my little thing that I wanted to talk about. I just got off the phone with a client. We were talking about that kind of that night binge and how it kind of keeps you feeling stuck, right? And discouraged and feeling like you're living that Groundhog Day. And every day you think, well, I'm gonna let myself eat what I want. And the truth of the matter is, if you're not kind of forcing those foods, you really probably are eating what you want. You've conditioned yourself to not want those foods during the day. And so be honest with yourself and be like, you know what? I probably am not craving these foods because they've never even been available for me. They haven't been an option in my mind during the day. So maybe if I just force them for a while, things will change. And they do. Okay. All right. I'm trying to go all in and I'm really struggling. I feel it to be so much easier just to eat at night before bed, struggling. Yeah. So this is what I was just talking about. Yeah, it is easier. Like I said, it's like that natural Valium, that just like calming for a lot of people. It just feels so much easier at night. And the reasons I explained before, just because a lot of times you're going to feel like if you have like any kind of stress in your day or the unknown, right? That was another thing that I wouldn't allow myself to eat what I wanted during the day, because what if someone just walked in with a cake? Or what if my husband wanted to go out to dinner that night and I wasn't planning on? Or what if, and it was just like, it was like these threats, the unknown just felt so threatening to me that I had to be sure that I was always hungry just in case. And I had always already eaten very, what's the word, safe, just in case something came my way. Which never worked, because then let's say someone did come in with cake and I had the eating disordered perfect day, I still wouldn't eat it. And if my husband wanted to go to dinner, I still wouldn't go. So it doesn't even work. But that's kind of some of the reasons why people get hung up on that only eating at night type of thing. If exercise becomes compulsive after quitting cold turkey and slowly putting it back in my life, do I have to quit it cold turkey again? It's been a year since I started exercising again, and now the past month it's become somewhat compulsive. I don't restrict food, I just exercise a lot. Yeah, I'd have to talk to you more, Irene, but yeah, I think going cold turkey again would be smart. It may be that you don't need a whole nother year, but it may be that you just started a little too soon. I've seen this happen with clients where they will bring it back in after taking a good amount of time off, and the same thing will kind of happen. And they're like, this didn't work. Oh my gosh, I'm always going to be addicted to exercise. And it's like, no, take a little more time off. And they do. And they're actually quite pleasantly surprised after taking just a few more months off, that going back into it, it does feel different. And that's where like working one on one with someone in that situation would be helpful. I think one of the times I feel the most helpful as a coach is when somebody has, well, first getting somebody to go cold turkey, that takes a lot of support, right? And just kind of focus to be able to do that, and reminders, constant reassurance, this is right, keep doing it. But then also when it comes time to start integrating it back in and bringing it in and kind of navigating what that whole process looks like, I feel like as a coach, having a coach is really helpful during that time. But yeah, just given what I know about you, Irene, I would definitely say go cold turkey again, and go long enough that just knowing that like, yeah, I could probably start back up again, but then still don't. I know for me, it was around like 9 or 10 months when I remember thinking like, I could probably start exercising again, but I told myself a year and I'm just going to give it a few more months. And just even that thought didn't freak me out. Whereas I knew that if I hadn't fully rewired that compulsion, oh my gosh, if I was like, I think I can exercise again, I'm going to give it a few months, I would be like, a few months, I'm not giving myself a few more months, I'm doing it now. You see the difference in reaction? So if you're listening to this and you're like, is she kidding? I'm not going cold turkey for a few more months, then you definitely need to go cold turkey again. But if you're like, yeah, I don't know, yeah, I think either way, probably need to stop it for a while. Okay, Kathleen, you'd make a fortune as my personal psychic. Oh boy, that's funny. Should I start that business then? I'm a psychic for people with eating disorders. I understand I quit cold turkey exercise. Night binging is so me. I don't eat much during the day. I need help to eat. Thanks for answering. I sleep during the day. Um, why is the weight coming on so fast, and how do I get over the questions from others? So the weight's coming on fast because you were probably heavily restricting, and if you're eating unrestrictedly, you're probably eating tons more food. And so the fear of weight coming on too fast is so common for people in recovery. And I think the biggest fear in that is that because I think a lot of the world still views eating disorders as a visual, like a physical thing, that if you start looking better, right? You start looking like you're not as sick. That therefore your mental state needs to match that. Your mental state needs to be progressing at the same rate in which you're gaining weight. And that's just not a thing. That doesn't happen. Like nobody, if somebody's eating fully unrestrictedly, their rewiring is not keeping up with that weight gain. So just assume that that's not going to be a possibility. And then that when you recognize that and you're like, okay, so I see that my body's going to change a lot faster than my brain, and I'm really worried about what people are going to think, then that's where you have the opportunity to use your voice and talk and tell people, hey, educate people. It's a wonderful opportunity to educate people about eating disorders. Hey, I know that most of us have been taught that eating disorders are just this visual thing that, you can tell physically if someone has it, but actually it's not. And rewiring is a huge component of recovery. Rewiring is retraining my brain around a lot of the behaviors and rules and things that I followed in my eating disorder. And so as I gain weight, I'm still working on changing the way my brain's thinking, but this mental process takes so much longer than the weight gain. So just because I look like I'm doing better, I'm still struggling a lot, maybe even more, because now I'm trying to get used to this body that I'm in as well. So just talking to people. I highly doubt someone's going to listen and be like, you liar and fake, you're making it up that you're still struggling. Like, people, if you're honest with them, are going to understand that. People that you aren't talking to, they may not understand that, and you may feel like support is dropping off. But I just think that's your responsibility to talk to these people and tell them what you're experiencing and educate them. And by doing that, it's going to take a ton of pressure off of you. You're going to feel a lot more. I know I had to do that. Even just with my husband, he'd be like, you're looking so much better. And oh, I'm so proud of you. And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? I'm going insane. I feel like I can't do this another day. I feel like I'm going to go straight back any second. Like, I was so vulnerable, and being able to talk to him and tell him that helped him to kind of understand, oh, okay, there's a lot more to this than just the fact that she's looking very different. And then it would open up conversations and allow me to kind of externalize the thoughts that were going on in my head. So can't emphasize that enough, how important it is to talk to people if you're worried about that. Um, okay, did your extreme hunger or large appetite die down after you had a certain overshoot weight? After you got a certain overshoot weight, did your extreme hunger, large appetite? Yes. Yes, to a degree. So I feel like it did start to kind of taper off, maybe like around that year mark, but looking back now, it still was extremely elevated compared to how I eat now. And it's hard to say, right? Because like I developed my eating disorder when I was, I don't know, like late teens. And so I'm a little older now. So I feel like, and I'm not nearly as active as I was as a kid. So I feel like because I'm in a state of energy balance, I feel like I find myself getting full and satiated off of just what I would consider sort of more a normal amount. Where after maybe even just a year of being in recovery, I still had quite a large appetite. And I was in a place of overshoot. I didn't know it at the time, but I was still in a place where my body just needed, I see it as like that insurance, like that your body needs to know that that food is going to continue to come, and that you're going to allow your body to fully heal. And sometimes that takes overshoot to allow that to happen. The dangerous thing though is when people think, oh, okay, so long as I know this is overshoot, then I can keep listening to my extreme hunger because it'll come off, right? You cannot think that way because it may not be your overshoot, one. And two, how is that teaching your brain that weight gain is not something to be feared, or that is weight gain is not a bad thing, right? If you're going into it with like, well, assuming I lose this, I'll keep gaining, I'll keep eating. That doesn't work that way. So I caught myself in recovery having those thoughts as I was continuing to gain. And I thought, you know what? I don't know. I can't judge. I don't know what this is. I don't know. I just know that I'm still gaining and I know that I'm still hungry. I'm going to focus on the truths here. I'm going to let my body do what it needs to do and I'm going to keep eating. And it was scary, but it definitely was the only thing that was that allowed me to get my mental hunger down, my extreme hunger to eventually, go away, and for me to essentially heal my relationship with food and my body and to be able to trust it again. Let's see. Yeah, so you said that it's only been 2 weeks and your weight's coming on so fast. Yeah, mine did too. I would say, like, and I don't say this to scare people, but just if you're out there and you're going through this, that you're not doing anything wrong. Like, probably in a matter of a month of me fully going for unrestricted eating, I look like a different person. I wasn't weighing myself, but I look like a different person. It happened really, really fast for me. I think if I was weighing myself, there's no way I could have done it because it would have freaked me out too much. But all I kept reminding myself was I have to rewire my brain and I have to be able to do the things I've never done before. I have to run into all of these fears. I have to break all these rules. I have to do these things. And so I can't allow my brain to focus on the weight gain. I have to just focus on the task at hand. What do I have to do to rewire my brain and continue? It takes a lot of self-discipline to continue to remind yourself to focus on that. And that's all that you can and should be controlling, is allowing yourself to eat unrestrictedly. Okay. I've got a ton of questions and I've got to go here. Yes, I do. Let's see. Okay, can you please elaborate on dealing with uncertainty? Restricting ahead of time out of worry that something unpleasant will happen later. Um, so are you asking me, like, I understand what you're asking, I think. So not being able to deal with uncertainty. So in order to feel like you've got some control there or some certainty in your day, in fear that something may happen out of your control later, you restrict. Is that what you're asking? Hopefully, if I got that right, DG. If you can clarify if I'm not going in the right direction here, stop me and rephrase your question. But I think what you're asking is, how do you get over wanting to protect yourself through restriction, essentially, right? Which really it doesn't, but it kind of makes you feel like, anything can happen in your life so long as you are being really good at following your eating disorder. And so long as you are restricting, you kind of, at least for me, I remember feeling in some ways invincible, numb, but also just invincible. So I've talked about this before where, if I was perfectly restricting, I feel like I feel like a lot of really bad things could have happened to me in a day and I could have gotten through because I had restricted. And like saying that out loud now, just like I don't understand it. I don't know why that worked for me for so many years. But it wasn't until I kind of went through recovery that I realized that is like the most false sense of control. That is the most erroneous way of thinking that you're going to somehow escape things that aren't, positive to happen to you. So on the flip side, though, when I entered recovery and I started eating a lot more, you better believe when not good things happened or something in my day went bad, I blamed it on the fact that I had eaten. And same thing, saying that out loud seems so incredibly illogical to me, but I believed that for so long when I was still very much in my eating disorder. So I don't know if I'm answering that question exactly how, I'm not sure exactly what the question you were asking, but kind of based off of what I read there. If you're someone who struggles with that, feeling like if you just restrict, you're kind of protected from the outside world, you're kind of not. You're not living. You're not experiencing life. And when you're fully recovered, you'll be able to handle things that come your way that aren't perfect. You're not going to blame it on the fact that you ate, but you'll also be able to deal with it a little bit better or a lot better. So restriction's never the answer. If you still think it's serving you, it's not. And I can't recommend going into full recovery enough. So on that, I've got to go. I hope everyone has a splendid Tuesday. All right. Bye.